Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We are live right here in the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas, and on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. We're live out there on Facebook, YouTube, and X. Hope you guys are had a great week. We are live. It's Friday night, or it's Friday Night Live. We should make a new show, make a new title. We're just getting a bunch of titles as we were moving along with this show. So we're live. It's Friday night, and you might think to yourself, why is Dr. Clemmons sitting in his office, in his studio, talking to us on a Friday night at 6 o'clock? This doesn't even make any sense. Well, it does too, because look, I'm 53 years old. My kids are grown, and like I work with Leslie all day long. She sees me, she sees enough of me all day long, right? And so right now, I'm in the time of my life where I don't have anything else to do. I could go home and stare at my phone. The football games don't start till after 7, so I got an hour. I got an hour on Friday nights. I don't have a date tonight. I don't have anything to do. If I had a date or I had something to do, I'd put on an encore show and we'd do something different. But that's not what we're doing tonight. We're talking about health, because if I'm not doing something as a husband or a father, then I'd just soon sit here and talk to you guys about health. I don't really have anything else that's more important. I mean, you know that, because last week I skipped 3 Saturdays in a row to study neurology. 3 Saturdays in a row in football season. I don't know what the heck is wrong with those people, but I was laughing. We were laughing in our workout yesterday morning, because not only were they doing a seminar, but I was attending the seminar. And so I was like, well, I guess that says something about me too. So yeah, but hey, we're talking about health. We got a bunch of stuff. I don't even know if we'll get all through all the stuff tonight, but we got a bunch of stuff that we're going to go over. So, hey, if you haven't seen the shows this week, go back and watch them. You can go to YouTube. You can go to X, the old Twitter. You can go to Facebook. You can go to the Walk by Faith Facebook pages. Go back and watch those shows if you didn't see them live, or you haven't seen them, or if you want to share them with a friend, send them to somebody and let those people listen to them. We've had some pretty good ones. Monday night was we took health to church. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we just talked about different kinds of things. We talked about all kinds of stuff this week, right? Sleeping patterns, um, uh, nervous system function. We had a lot of stuff that we talked about. And so we got a bunch more that we want to talk about tonight. Just a bunch of just different ideas that stack. For you guys that are new to the show, because I know we got some new listeners. If you're new to the show, what you're going to find out is that if you watch it for a while, you'll start to notice how health and wellness stacks upon itself. It's not that complicated, but it ties into the fundamentals of health and wellness, tie into everything that goes on. And people kind of want to move away from the center when they talk about things, because really, as human beings, it gets boring talking about the same old fundamentals, right? I mean, if you like, I always reference football, and one of the winningest coaches in the history of mankind and in the history of football was Tom Osborne at Nebraska. In 25 years, he won 250 something games. He averaged 10 wins a season for 25 years at Nebraska. That's amazing. That's amazing. And he was boring. He was boring as heck. He was boring as heck. It's plain vanilla, just boring. And it made, everybody else wants to, you end up with coaches like Coach Leach and throwing the ball all over the place and exciting stuff and that same thing happens with health, right? We want this. We always talked about it this week with relief factor, right? Hey, what about relief factor? And when I looked it up, what's relief factor? It's resveratrol from blueberries and raspberries. It's fish oil. It's turmeric and something. I'm not even going to get into that other thing, but it's just offshoots of the fundamentals. So when we talk about everything that we talk about on the show, and what you'll start to see is how it just keeps coming back upon itself. It just keeps coming back upon itself. And you'll really find out is it's coming back to your brain. It's if you don't get that yet, that's really what happens. It comes back to your brain. I worked on a girl today that had left side shoulder issues. The ribs were messed up. The clavicle was messed up. The pec muscle was super tight. Like all this left side stuff. And her head, when I checked her posture, her head was tilted to the left. Like it totally matched, right? Because your head tends to tilt towards the weak cortex side. And when that cortex, that part of your brain, that upper brain, is a little bit weak, then what happens to the muscles on that side? You guys, the guys that's been watching this for a while, you know that, right? When your skull is not your skull, your brain is a little bit weak, and you start to tilt your head that way. The reason you're tilting your head that way is because your SCM muscle is tight, tilting. What else is going on? Pec is internally rotated, and it's hurts. So what does a person do when they show up in your office? They show up in your office and they say, my left shoulder is jacked up. Now, it's not common. Most of the time, it's on the right side, right? Because the right side brain is overworked in this world of stress that we live in. But in this particular person, it was over on the left. So, and that's why we check your posture every single time that you come in. We check your posture so that I can kind of get an idea what your brain is doing. So, but what did the person come into the office with? They came into the office with telling me, man, my shoulder's jacked up today. But they didn't say to me, my left cortex is a little bit hypotonic today. My left cortex is not working properly, Doc. Can you fix that? They didn't come in and say that because nobody knows that, right? No, this little OG class that we got on, that you guys that are hanging out with us on from 6 to 7 at night, y'all are getting to where you know that, but you're in the top 0.001% of human beings on the planet by this point. I mean, every day, every day you get more weird and more weird and more weird. I'm just trying to tell you, I'm warning you right now. If you keep listening, you're going to just be so strange. My brother-in-law was the weirdest person I ever met when I went to work for him in March of 2000, the chiropractor. I was talking about that during the workout yesterday. I was talking about when I was growing up, I was just like all the other people I knew. Like, you could have just taken me and Tim and Mickey and all of us and just switched houses with us. Like, we were just basically the same kids. I mean, some of us studied a little bit more than others, and we didn't get quite as much trouble as others. But for the most part, it's like, dude, like, we were all drinking Dr. Peppers. We were all eating Domino's pizza. It's just like, whatever, man. It's like, we were all the same kids. And everybody around me did pretty much the same thing I did. So how was I supposed to know about health? I didn't know anything about health. And then I got to coaching, and pretty much coaches are all the same. I mean, Coach Campbell used to walk every day. That was kind of weird. He just, during the middle of lunch, after lunch, he'd just go walk in the bubble over at Tech. And he would, I was like, well, that's kind of, he was a thin little guy, go figure, right? But no one talked about it. And because everybody around me was just pretty much like, I mean, we just went to lunch over in the dining hall. And when we did, we just ate the same stuff that was over there. Nobody said anything about what you were eating. Nobody said anything about what you were drinking. Nobody said anything about how many cups of coffee you had today. It was just kind of like that. And then all of a sudden, I went to work for my brother-in-law. He offered me a job, and I literally told him, dude, you're the weirdest person I've ever met. And you're the weirdest person I've ever met because I never even heard of anybody think of these things like you think of them. Well, I didn't know that he had gotten exposed to some different stuff. He wasn't that way when he was growing up, but he got to be that way because he got exposed to some of this stuff, right? Well, then I started getting exposed to it, and then here we go. And then what happened? Well, then I started getting weird. I started getting weird, and so no, I just started learning how it works, right? And you guys are now starting to learn how it works. I want you to, when your shoulder is jacked up, when you wake up in the morning and you can't raise your arm up, and you start to raise your arm up, and you get it to about 90 degrees and parallel with your shoulder, and it starts to hurt right here, and you get that pain that runs down the front of your shoulder right there. Like when you're oh, that hurt, that hurts. I tried to put my shirt on this morning and my shoulder hurt. The first thing I want you to think of is your brain. I don't want you to think there's something wrong with your shoulder. I want you to think, why is my brain not firing my shoulder properly? When you wake up and you've got inflammation in your feet and you can't walk to the bathroom, I don't want you to think about how your ankles hurt. I want you to say, what is going on with my nervous system? Right? That's what I get in the office is I get constant descriptions of abnormal brain function. But nobody knows they're describing it because they'll tell me their back hurts, or they'll tell me their shoulder hurts, or they'll tell me their knee hurts, or whatever that might be. But what we try to do on this little party we have every night from 6 to 7 is we just try to talk about why all those things are happening so that you can have a better idea of how to take care of yourself and be healthier. I gotta be honest with you. Today I was really close. I was really close to just saying, hey, we're not going to have a show tonight, and just do a show on the radio. Don't do a social media show and just go home and then chill out. It's Friday night, whatever. I was that close to doing it. And you know what I thought of? I thought of my best friend. I have two best friends from Roswell. I thought of my best friend who died in the middle of a football game 2 years ago, I think. 2 years ago this fall. Mickey Reeves was his name. He was one of the greatest football players in the history of New Mexico. He was one of my best friends. And one of my two best friends. And he goes in at halftime, writes a play on the board. They're winning the football game. This is Gateway Christian Church in Roswell. You can look it up if you want. He goes in at halftime, writes a deal on the board, and then a play that they're going to run. All the kids leave. He goes into the bathroom, and then all of a sudden one kid comes find him, then found him on the floor and dead. And I keep the newspaper of the Roswell Daily Record in my closet, and I see it every single day. It's his face every single day is right there. And what's cool now is my dad's face is up there on the other side because I got the poster from when he passed away. When I was putting on my shirt this morning, I said, "Hey, Dad." It was right there. But I see Mickey's face every single morning. And sometimes I hate his guts for dying. Sometimes I'm so ticked at that boy for making the choices, whatever the hell caused him to die. And I got an opinion on it, and I'm not going to talk about that on the radio, but whatever it was that caused him to die just ticks me off. And then some days I look at him and I'm just like, damn, gummit. Like my man, like my friend. That's it, like, dad, gummit. 50 years old. 51 maybe. I don't remember. I think he's 50. Maybe might have been 51 years old. Like, wife and 3 kids and the whole thing just like crashed down. Why? Because he didn't understand how to be healthy. Didn't understand how to keep himself healthy. Dadgummit. That was so when I felt sorry for myself a little bit and I just wanted to take Friday night off and I didn't want to go do, I was like, well, I could just make up some excuse and say I'm not going to do the show. I thought about Mickey, so I appreciate him jumping into my brain. I appreciate him coming and saying, hey, Clemmons, what the heck, man? You going to teach everybody else how to be healthy, or are you just going to just go home and look at your phone? Shut up, Mick. So I'm not going to go home and look at my phone. I'm going to sit here and talk to you on a Friday night. So let's get after it. Let's talk about some stuff, right? First of all, you guys ever seen a cold laser? I was doing this on myself earlier. I thought, hey, some of you guys might not have seen it. Some of you guys in the office see it. But yeah, the cold laser got different protocols and stuff that you got. Here's one for inflammation. You could just get it started, and then you could just light yourself up with your cold laser. So you could put it right on top of your head. You could put it right on your forehead. You could just, like, it's got a red and a purple. It's got a red and a purple light on it. Yeah, maybe you can see that. It's kind of hard to see on the video, maybe, but yeah. This is cold laser. We got one here in the office. It's pretty cool stuff. Something that we use in the office. It fires mitochondria. The whole idea is to increase mitochondrial function, right? That's what we're trying to do. And you guys know how important I think mitochondria is. So it increases, it fires the electron transport chains, and hang on one second. I told the guy the wrong. I sent a new person our address, and I misspelled rock and I put talk. Doesn't make any sense. So there you go. But yeah, so increase your mitochondria, increase your energy production, increase the way that your body functions. Super important. That's why we take our fish oil. We take our fish oil to make sure we keep our cell wall functioning, we keep our glutathione functioning so that we can keep our mitochondria functioning. That's important stuff. The mitochondria, you've seen it. You've seen it in pictures. Picture is worth 1,000 words. There's your picture. There's your cell. There's your mitochondria right there. Right there. Blows up right there. Making all that power. That cell has to have power somehow. That cell can't work without power, and that power plant is that mitochondria. You know, we got power plants out here in West Texas, that out there by Littlefield and Anton and Amherst out there. There's a power plants, right? And the guys work at the plant. You got them all over America, got them all over the world, right? You got guys working at the plant to keep the power on so that I can bring you a show and we can have lights in the building and we can have power going to all this stuff. And that's what that is all about right there. So that's you. If you lose your power, then your body doesn't function properly. So you got to have the power. Next thing we talked about this week, and I thought I'd just run it by you again, just so you know. I talked about it with your pulse ox, right? A lot of you guys have one of these at home. Just check and see what your oxygen is doing. Check and see where you are with your heart rate and where your oxygen is. I'll just set that down. Oops, lost it. And I checked it earlier. I hate it when my props don't work. But you could check it and just see where you are. 98 on my oxygen, 78 on my heart rate. I'm a little fired up right now, right? So 78 on my heart rate, and then kick the chair out for me and stand up. Stand up and look and see, where did my heart rate go to? My heart rate went to 83, 84, 85, 86, 87. 89, then it dropped back down. Now it's going back down. Okay, so 11 beats per minute when I stood up. So that's normal. That's normal for that to happen. When you stand up, your heart rate's going to go up. Now, if you watch any of you guys on like blood pressure medication or all that different kind of stuff, there's multiple medications that just stop that from happening right there. But that's normal. That's normal for it. You should go up 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, something like that, beats per minute on your heart rate when you stand up. If you're going down and you're not, if you drop on your heart rate when you stand up, that's not good. That's not a good thing for you. You got to be able to you should have a sympathetic response. A sympathetic. Remember, see last night's show and the nights before when we got into all that sympathetic and parasympathetic, the fight or flight or the rest and recover, that heart rate variability that we talked about. I'm going to show you a picture of it here in a minute. All of those things, that heart rate variability is that the difference between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic activity that's going on inside your nervous system. And so when you stand up, you should increase your sympathetics. Your body should respond. That's the way it's supposed to happen. If you guys are standing up and nothing's happening, then your sympathetic nervous system isn't firing properly. You have interference in your nervous system. And what do we call interference in our nervous system? A subluxation, right? That's why you get adjusted, is because you're subluxated. How do you test to see if you're subluxated? Check your pulse, your oxygen, and your pulse. Check your heart rate. You can tell if you're subluxated by looking at your heart rate. It's what? Yeah. What did he just say? Wait a minute. Say that again. Run that back, right? That's what we used to do in football. Run that back. Hit the reverse button. Run that back. I'll do that in the living room sometime. I'll just take while I'm watching the game. I'll just hit it and run it back. Caitlin, she knows. She can answer stuff now. She can tell you what the safety's doing. She can tell you what's going on up front, who's out of their gap, all that stuff, right? And so we run that back. Well, I'm going to run this back one more time. When you stand up, you should be able to increase your heart rate. If you're not increasing your heart rate, you're not getting a sympathetic response that's interference in your nervous system. That's called a subluxation. Chiropractic is the detection and correction of subluxation because we're looking at the nervous system. That justifies a chiropractic adjustment. And I didn't say a single thing about back pain, right? I didn't even think about saying anything about back pain. It's just simply right there. Now let's jump to the other side of that deal, especially in young ladies. And I don't know how many young ladies we have that watch the show, but especially, and we've talked about it in the past, but I know there's new listeners that I want to make sure we cover this stuff. But let's say it jumps 30 beats per minute. Let's say that 78 went to 88, then it went to 98, then it went to 108. Okay, wait a minute. That's too much. That's too much of what's happening. And what basically is going on right there is you have this thing called the vestibulosympathetic reflex. And it has to do with, I think it's called Stirling's law. And it has to do with the cardiac return from your legs. So back to your heart. So the amount of blood flow that returns back to the heart from the legs, that's what it's kind of measuring right there. Well, in a person, this is a young girl that would have what's called POTS, right? Postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. I know it's got a couple names, but that's what I remember about POTS. So if you're jumping up really high, Brooke and I had this conversation this morning about one of the girls that works out at her gym because they wear the heart rate monitors, and her heart rate's way up at 198 or something like that. It's like, whoa, hang on. And she's not even hardly working out. And I said, you better check that. And I showed her how to check it. You sit down, take your pulse, and then stand up and see what it goes up to. And when it goes up too high, what's happening is that that vestibular sympathetic reflex is getting stimulated. Vestibular means your ear, right? Your sympathetics are your fight or flight response. So there's a reflex that's going on in there between your ear and between your sympathetic nervous system and what's going on with blood flow back to the heart. Well, as soon as you stop returning blood to the heart, then you start decreasing the stroke volume of output of the heart. And when you do that, you're going to start to lose oxygen to your brain. That's why people pass out. When you get up, if you stand up and get lightheaded and pass out, you're actually falling down. Your brain is trying to get you horizontal on the ground. It wants you to fall down so that it's easier for the blood to pull back to your head so you can get oxygen in your brain. That's what's actually going on right there. So, young person, what are some of the things? What is one of the things that actually increases that reflex especially in young girls? Forward head posture, reversed cervical curve. If you can almost book it, that if they're a young person and they've got POTS, so if you're an older person, you got a granddaughter that's dealing with this, then you could understand this. If they have, especially in females, if there's a forward head posture or a reversed cervical curve, you have an increased chance of causing excitation to that reflex, which is going to set that whole thing off. You're going to lose that cardiac return to your heart, and you're going to start to create increased heart rate. You're going to get dizzy and lightheaded and all that sort of thing. It's going to be hard to function. You're going to lose your bearing about where you are, and then that's a problem, right? Another thing is the thyroid adrenal relationship, because sympathetic nervous system is going to fire that adrenal gland, and that adrenal gland, for number one, it needs the right proper nutrients, fuel, and activation. It needs to make sure you got the right nerve supply going on through there. You need to make sure that you're not overstimulating that. There needs to be proper nerve supply to the thyroid gland. There needs to be proper nutrients to the thyroid gland. So the thyroid adrenal relationship is very important. And then there's some other things like what's going on with the pupils, the heart rate. That's kind of a brain issue. And there's some things that we can check in the office on that. So yeah, just wanted to go over that. Hey, we got a break coming up. Let's take that break. We'll be back in just a minute. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. I hope you guys are having a great Friday night, and just stay with us. We'll be right back. So for you guys that are new, we're doing a live radio show right now, and we're doing a live social media show right now, and that is a little bit difficult to do because you got two different systems working. You got a timing clock. On the social media stuff, we could just go for it. We don't need any. We don't have any disruptions. There's no timing clock. There's no advertisement. None of that stuff. So on the social media part of it, we could just rock and roll and talk about as long as we want to talk, right? But on the radio, that's not the way the radio works. So when you're doing two shows live at the same time, you have to you got to, and it's for you poor people who've watched this thing for a year, you're actually very aware. You're very aware of how difficult this is to make it work. But I'm feeling like, knock on wood, I think we've done pretty good here lately. I think we finally got it to where if I could just remember to turn on the microphone, and thanks for Susan hooked us up last week, let me know about that microphone thing. And yeah, hey Lewis, hey, I hope everything's going good with you down at Waco. I don't know who the Horns got this week. Seems like I should remember that. The Red Raiders got Cincinnati, and nobody knows what to do with that. It's like a new world in Lubbock for us on that deal. But let's see who the Horns got. I guess I can look on top 25 for the Horns. Yeah, Mississippi State. So, yeah, seems like they ought to be able to handle that. Of course, right? They're number one in the country. They're supposed to be able to handle that stuff. But honestly, we don't care. There's an awesome song. What's his name? Green something talks about Lubbock. I got too much of Lubbock in me, or whatever. Caitlin listens to that song quite a bit, and that's a pretty cool song. My brother's he wrote a song, got some lyrics in that about that too. But we won't get too far off base talking about the Horns on a Friday night. Why would we want to do something like that? All right, let's get back to the show. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, and we're just talking about health tonight. One thing I want to share with you, in case you don't know, because this is This is super. I've shared it with you before, but I know some of you are new. Um, where is my? I thought I was going to share it with you. Well, hang on a second. Um, I don't know what I did with it. I had a picture. I wanted to share with you, and maybe I just there it is. Okay. Um, Alzheimer's is a big deal, and you guys that are this book right here is it's a must for everybody that deals with Alzheimer's. The End of Alzheimer's is that with Dr. Dale Bredesen. That is the book. If you're dealing with Alzheimer's, you've got anybody in your family that's dealing with Alzheimer's, that is the book right there that I suggest that you get, or the guy that you listen to. You can go onto YouTube. You can listen to Dr. Bredesen and talk about it. He can explain his whole thing, the recode process. You can go listen to TED Talks. I listened to one earlier today with the End of Alzheimer's, and you can listen to him talk about it on TED Talks. He's got several lengthy videos, an hour and 45 minutes, all that sort of thing. You can read the book. But if you're dealing with Alzheimer's, or you have anybody in your family that's dealing with Alzheimer's, or you're worried about Alzheimer's, I had this conversation multiple times this week, and I know all of us if you're 50 years old or older, then there's a certain awareness. I guess maybe when you get into 60 and 70, it becomes more real. And really, what you don't want to do is get to be in your 70s and have Alzheimer's. That's an unfortunate situation. And so what we want to do, and if you have it now, we got no time to waste. We've got no time to waste. We got to draw a double yellow line on the road. We got to make a line in the sand, and we got to say, hey, look, we are if we want to try to prolong our life, if we want to try to establish something, some sort of way to function, then we got to get after it. Set your pace by your distance. I read that one time. Set your pace by your distance, and when you get to be 70 and you start dealing with this, it's a problem, and we really got to get after it. And Dr. Bredesen is the only person that I know of that actually does some reversal of Alzheimer's disease. So that's why I share the book. I don't know him, never met him before. I just studied him a lot. We've done book reviews on this particular book. So I want you to make sure that you know about him, and it's super important. So if you don't have that book, go to Amazon. It's so easy these days. Or you could go to Barnes and Noble; they've probably got it. Or you can go to Amazon and you can just click it, and they'll just bring it to your house. It's the craziest thing. It's like all of a sudden you just want a book, you just go on your phone and you just order it, and then they'll just send it to you. And sometimes it's like tomorrow you get it. Sometimes it's like 2 days, right? It's that easy. It's that easy to go to get the knowledge these days, especially when you're talking about that. So that is one thing that I really want you to think about. All right, one of the things that one of the statements that one of my guys made to me today was about going to the neurologist, and the three things that the neurologist said to them. The three things that the neurologist said to them about what to do, and the number one was walk. Go for a walk every day. Number two is do crossword puzzles, and number three, be social. Those are the three things that the neurologist told the Alzheimer's patient to do. Okay, all those things are true, like it is. But Dr. Bredesen will show you there's about 29 more things that you need to do that if you really want to get serious about reversing Alzheimer's. But those three things is something that I kind of drew this little picture, but those three things are, there's a reason, and the just so you can kind of know it, but movement drives the brain. Movement fires your, remember this whole 3 trillion bits of information per second. 3 trillion bits of information per second going into the brain. Movement fires the brain. Movement fires the cerebellum. Cerebellum fires the parietal lobe. The movement sensory information fires the parietal lobe. The parietal lobe fires the frontal lobe. Frontal lobe fires back down to the body. And now we get this whole safety pin type of cycle that's going on between the brain and the body. Right? So walking is just vital. Everybody knows either, well, you've seen it with your spouse, you've seen it with your parents, you've seen it with your grandparents. No matter how old you are, you've seen it when my dad stopped walking, his health just crashed. I mean, just crashed. And then if his health was here and it crashed, and then death was down there, if death is down here on this road, down on this line right here, what you hope is that angle just keeps going steep, right? Like you really want this to go steep. Well, if you lose your health wherever you are, and you're not able to, if you're not doing anything, if you're not walking, and your health starts crashing and that angle starts going down, in my opinion, you want it to cross over, and you want to try to get past that deadline as fast as you can. You got a deadline to meet, right? And that's harsh as heck, but that's the way life is, right? Okay, if it doesn't do that, and that thing starts and turns on you, and it starts going like this, and it just flattens out and flattens out and flattens out and flattens out, that right there is what I call hell on earth. That's why it's so important. Like it's like, no, you do that right there is miserable. That from that point where you start to fail to the point that you just slowly reach there, that's a miserable existence. So don't do that. Don't do that. Get on your feet and walk. Okay? Walk. Number 2, if you can't walk, come to the office. We have an Alter G treadmill that can help you walk. Okay? It's important. Crossword puzzles are awesome. The crossword puzzles keep your brain firing. Crossword puzzles make you think. You have to think about the answer to that thing. You have to fire that deal. My grandmother lived to be 97 years old. She did crossword puzzles every day and played bingo. Those are 2 things that really fired her brain. She also ate a lot of tuna fish. So tuna fish is omega-3 fatty acids. So that's something that can kind of help. And then that be social part is super. Everybody that's been watching the show knows it. Our brain fires up and to the right and over to the left. The up and to the right part is where we are social. This right hemisphere is social. The right hemisphere is how we get along with people. If we don't drive that right hemisphere, we won't get along with people, and we'll get stuck over here on the right side, and we'll get stuck in. We won't have enough power up to that right side, and it'll just barely get there, and now we'll get stuck in sympathetic stress. This is our sympathetic side, and that will fire our adrenal glands. That will release cortisol. That increases blood sugar. Now we'll have diabetes, and then you know how I feel about that. So then we'll have diabetes, and we'll have brain stuff, and then now we're not firing across. So what are we getting? We're losing right side to left side brain activity, and that's memory. memory is the inability of the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere to talk to each other. And you can't get anything past that. It's not working because you don't have enough power up to that right hemisphere. So there's some things there. There's some things that are just super important. So that's where that be social thing comes into play. You just want to be social. Interact with somebody. Interact with people. Interact with somebody. Keep your brain healthy. We're not made to be isolated. We're not. We're made to be interacting with each other. So those are three things that are super important. Okay, that's and sugar. We'll get into that. We'll get into if you're Dr. Bredesen will get into it. He'll get into it about controlling the cleaning up of your brain and all that sort of thing. His big thing is it's called the Keto 312 diet. Keto Flex, he calls it. The Keto Flex 312. 3 hours, don't eat anything 3 hours before you go to bed. So if you go to bed at 10, don't eat anything after 7. And then make it 7 to 7. That's 12 hours without eating anything, which that's not that hard to do, right? And then if you have any problems, see if you can add 4 more hours to that. And so you wouldn't eat anything from a 7 to 11. And then your eating time would be 11 to 7. And during that time, you would try to eat your non-processed food, meat, vegetables, nuts, berries, a little bit of fruit, no sugar, right? And that's kind of your whole Keto Flex 312. Your keto part of it is that 7 to 11 time frame, that 16 hours that causes your body to be out of carbs, and so your body has to figure out what it's going to do with that, and then you can eat and be flexible and have some you can have some glucose, you can have some carbohydrates, but your carbohydrates come in the form of vegetables. You get your carbohydrates in the form of vegetables, right? And that's it. So I didn't want to get too much into it. I just wanted to share that part with you right there. I wrote these 3 things up here: tone, autonomics, and behavior. Because those are 3 things that happen to us when we have nerve interference. I was watching a video of Michael Hall. You guys can go find him. It's BrainDC, braindc.org. And that's Michael Hall, and he's the guy that he was our neurology teacher most of the time. He wasn't mine, but he was in most of the time at Parker College, and he's just one of the smartest dudes there is on the planet when it comes to neurology and what you do about it. That's the cool part about being a chiropractic neurologist, is because you got something to do about it, right? When you go see the neurologist and he tells you go home and walk and do crossword puzzles and be social, well, okay, fine, I'll do that, but okay, what else can I do? But so when the neurologist, they're super smart and they can tell you all the things that's going on with your brain, but what are they going to give you? They're going to give you medication, and then there's not much left, right? Well, in a chiropractic office, we're going to bombard you with all kinds of stuff. I mean, we're going to do all kinds of things. I'm going to move your eyes. I'm going to use vibration. We're going to use the adjustment. We're going to use the vibe plate. We're going to use laser glasses. We're going to use iPads to make your eyes move. We're going to do all kinds of Brock beads. Now we've got neurofeedback. So we're going to put a cap on your head and see if we can make your brain fire a little bit different. There's a lot of stuff. That's why I say Dr. Hall is one of the smartest people in the world when it comes to neurology. Not that he's more intelligent or smarter than any other medical neurologist. It's just that he's got a ton of things in his toolbox that will help us. But you know what's going to help us is going to help us to move. It's going to help us to move our feet. It's going to help us to be social. It's going to help us to watch our sugar. All those things, that wellness things that we do, are the same exact thing that we do when we're sick. We just try to do it with more intensity. Make sure we take our vitamin D. Make sure hey, I had another girl this week. Like, are you taking vitamin D? No. Come on now. Come on. Let's don't get into that. Let's get our vitamin D. So interference in your nervous system is going to change your tone. We talked about that already. Remember the shoulder, the pec muscle was tight. The SCM is tight, right? My head's tilted. That's increased muscle tone. It's too much contraction. Or it's not enough contraction, and so we're hypotonic. Those are things. Your autonomics, and that's that sympathetic, parasympathetic. That's the rest and recover. That's the fight or flight. Those are those things. You might say, what does that mean? What does that mean? It's rest and recover or fight or flight, right? Well, brain, cerebellum, spinal cord, right side, left side, into the right, over to the left, top down control, top down inhibition of amygdala, which is the sympathetic nervous system starting place. Top down control means upper brain control. Had a guy call me from Colorado today, wanted me to talk about his son. His son's 20 years old. It's like, okay, top down control hasn't been established yet because we haven't got all the myelination to the top of the brain. And so we're still dealing with some of that issue of top down control. The top is the senior class, the bottom is the freshman class. So if we don't have top down control, then what happens is we have lower brain escape. ESCAPE, escape. Lower brain escape. There's your vagus nerve. There's your vagus nerve, which is parasympathetic. It's your ability to calm things down, right? But your vagus nerve, it has a lot of functions, but that it controls your core down here, digestion. It controls immune system. 80% of your immune system is in your gut. Do I know that to be factual? No. I don't know if it's 80% or 70% or 55%. It's one of those things. It's like it's a third order thing. We're not going to fight over it. Your microbiome is what we're talking about. And your microbiome is that whole universe that you have inside your intestines and your gut that keeps you alive, that keeps you functioning. And when your immune system is involved in that whole microbiome thing. So the more that you feed the crackheads sugar, the more you're going to have allergies. The more that you feed the crackheads sugar, the more you're going to have to deal with the flu. Then they're going to tell you to go get the flu shot. Like, why? Why don't you just make sure that you're feeding the proper nutrients to the microbiome so that you don't have to deal with that stuff, right? The next one is reproduction. And the next one is posture. I go over this a lot, right? Multiple times this week because we got new people. But if you've heard it before, you'll hear it again, and you hear it again, and you hear it again. Okay, so we're talking about autonomics because we're talking about nerve interference. We're talking about sympathetic and parasympathetic activation of your body, which is done when you lose top-down control and your lower brain escapes and the vagus nerve gets involved, and then all of a sudden you got acid reflux. Remember what I said? It's like if you'll just trace it back to your brain. I got low testosterone. I got abnormal periods. I got muscle cramps. I got bad menstrual cramps. Yep. Trace it back to your brain. I got bad posture. I got forward head posture. I got this whole thing going on with my spine. I've got all those issues, right? Trace it back to your brain. Top-down control. What are things you could do for top-down control? Put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and keep yourself there. That's cold water immersion. Don't be careful with that, but that's what cold water immersion does. Put yourself in cold water and you're like, dadgummit, I want out of here. And so, but you're like, nope, I'm going to stay in here because I know it's good for me. I'm going to stay in here. And then what do you get? You get an increase in you get lots of adrenaline, which drives the right brain, and you get an increase in dopamine, which drives the left brain, and then you get a top-down control, which means it calms all the rest of this stuff down. Okay? All right. So that's enough of that. And let's talk about one more thing because we got about 5 minutes to go. We do in our office, we do a nutritional evaluation if you're interested in this, a nutritional evaluation. And we've even added this Dutch testing. It's dried urine testing. So we use this for hormones, and it gives us, it's really, really an advanced test. It gives us lots and lots. It's like 18 pages. Like I've got one right here that I just got back yesterday. And I think there was 18 pages on here. Total. There's 18 pages, and it's got it all. DHEA. It's got all of your cortisol, A, B, C, D, night, walking, morning, afternoon. The metabolized cortisol. It breaks down your testosterone. It breaks down pregnenolone, estrogen, all the stuff. If you're female, and a male, it's got all the hormones. So that's one of the parts of the nutritional evaluation that we use. But we also use it with, we don't just do that by itself. So we also use it with the heart rate variability test. And the heart rate variability test, we use Nerve Express for the heart rate variability test. And so we're going to get a printout of you of what's going on with your heart, and is it very variable? And now it will get a graph. It'll tell us, and it'll put it on the graph for us, and it'll tell us if your body is responding properly. Remember what I talked about? If you stand up, you should have a slight increase in your heart rate. That's proper activation of what's going on with the way that your sympathetic nervous system is supposed to work. Well, we can actually measure that, and we can tell you, it's like, look, you want to be over here in this quadrant instead of way down here in this quadrant. So heart rate variability is also a big part of that test. We put it all together with it. And then we also use the heart sound recorder. And this is really cool. And it was really cool because I wanted to do this heart sound recorder on this person that I got the test back with. And she asked me, she's like, okay, well, what would that tell you? And I'm like, it would confirm whether or not we had some sort of B vitamin deficiency or nutritional deficiency in the body. And she's like, how do you know that from listening to the heart? And I'm like, that's a great question, isn't it? So the heart sound recorder, you've been to the doctor, they put the stethoscope on your heart and they listen to it. Well, we have a stethoscope type thing that we put on your heart, and now it will give us a graph that looks like an EKG, but it's not. There's no electrical sound. I mean, it's no electricity to it, it's just sound. And so what we'll get from this is we'll get a printout of what your heart's doing and each one of the 4 valves in your heart, and then we'll kind of see, hey, look, does this look like it's supposed to look? Is this separated too much? Is there too much noise in between? Does the rate, rhythm, and tone match like it's supposed to? Is there a first beat and a second beat, a first beat and a second beat, a first beat and a second beat? Well, yeah, that all matches up pretty good. But then that's not the same. Like that's if your first beat is too wide or too tall, or it's not the same rate and rhythm, or just doesn't look right, or if it's too wide, it's not like it's supposed to be. That could give us an idea that maybe there's a nutritional deficiency that's going on with that. And so we would take something like the Dutch test, we would do the heart rate variability, we'd see what's going on with that. We do the heart sound recorder, we add that to the program, and then we could go in there and do your omega 6-3 index, where we actually test your 6-3 ratio, and we add that to the picture, And when you do all that together, you start to get a big comprehensive picture of what's going on with somebody and their health. And so you just add all those things together, and it's kind of cool, really. So if you're looking for a place and you need a place for someone to really evaluate that, then that's something that we have here at the office as well. So that's the end of the show. Thank you guys for listening. We got about a minute left. So if you have any questions, you ever want to text me, you can text me to my office number, 806-794-0400. And I will get back with you. I'll try to answer your questions. Sometimes we do it live on the air, and sometimes I'll do it after the show. If you want to send me a message like Lewis does, you can send it through social media. Facebook usually is the one I can understand the best. I can't figure out how to respond back to Twitter or X. And so, yeah, you guys have a great weekend. And I'll be back on Monday. We'll take Health to Church on Monday night at 6. If there's anything we can do for you, please let me know. And I'll see you guys later. Have a